Recording in progress.
Welcome in to the latest episode of Betting the Pitch with your host, @real_G Warner. You can also find me on Instagram, on YouTube, and on Patreon at @real_G Warner. Tonight's episode, we're doing late night with @real_G Warner. We have only 3 leagues in session right now. Serie A for most of it, as there's a Supercoppa going on. Supercoppa Italia, I believe. But then we'll also go through the Premier League as usual and the Ligue in France. We're going to try to keep a big streak going over the holidays. I also need to remember to tweet this out so people know that I'm live. And make sure you hit the follow button, whether you're on Twitter, on YouTube at @real_G Warner. Go check out a Patreon subscription, patreon.com/real_G Warner. Or if you are trying to get this wherever you get your podcasts, go to the Pitch Betting Twitter account, which will tweet out every episode I do, or look for Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. We're going to go through, we're 22-6. I haven't graded or haven't finished watching Manchester United and Newcastle. I think that won, but I don't want to grade it until I've watched it. So 22-6, entering this episode, 79% year to date. And that is including every pick I've made on these podcasts. So going to go through the 3 leagues we have on this league card tonight, and then pick out a favorite bet, smash it all together in a 1-minute video on Instagram at @real_G Warner. And then we can see if we can get to 23-6 with this Newcastle Manchester United match, and then maybe 24-6 after all of these come together. So we'll start in the Premier League, where that's where the money is. Shout out at LFA 603. Thank you for your support throughout this entire campaign, lifetime, whatever we call it. I don't know that you're listening to soccer podcasts as much anymore, but thanks for your support as always, Hefe. So we'll start as I try to get the Premier League lines, the most recent ones up. I think I have them right here. Yes, I do. Okay, so we'll start early matchup on Saturday morning, January 4th here in the United States. We have Tottenham, a half-a-goal underdog at home to Newcastle. Totals 3 3/4. Choose pretty heavily to under. I will be finishing the Newcastle match before I go to bed, just to make sure I don't want to get anything in on this matchup. But as I see it, as I certainly come to it, or currently come to it, I don't have a lot of interest right now in playing games with Tottenham, as I'm an underdog and an under player, and Tottenham are pretty much the antithesis of that. I would love that to be different. Certainly, I long for the days of Jose Mourinho, but Ange Postecoglou and his staff do not play anything close to a low-scoring matchup. And unfortunately, the only times they do play low-scoring games is when they're not scoring, because their defense is always under threat. Newcastle closed the favorite at Manchester United, played pretty well. As I didn't see the final score, but I know they kept a clean sheet in their victory. So pretty good chance that the under did hit, and we did move to 23-6. But I want to make sure that did happen. I didn't read something wrong or look at the score not when it was finished, because I try to avoid it. I don't think I looked away fast enough. But anyway, Tottenham, they're just not really of interest to me. So that, I guess, home defense might play better in their own park, but they're replacing so many players all over that defensive line. They don't play a worthy strategy, I don't think, for the Premier League. There's reasons why Celtic under Postecoglou were a major fade in Europe, because when they played the best teams in the world, they couldn't really stand up. A little different with Tottenham, a much bigger name and much better talent and a lot of money spent, but they've got a lot of problems. Newcastle had a Champions League season just a couple seasons ago, a lot based off of their results at home. Then they really faded in their season while they're trying to balance both Champions League and Premier League. Well, since then, they have certainly looked like, at least this season, that they've kind of solved those road woes, at least a little bit. Alexander Isak is the hottest player. Everyone in Fantasy Premier League FPL probably owns him by now. That was one of my first additions, and I'm running pretty well so far in FPL this season, but probably like fantasy football in the NFL, no one cares about that. You just want to pick on this matchup, I'm guessing, and I don't know that I have one. I think my biggest interest right now is Tottenham getting that half of a goal, because it's much bigger than I made it. But with that said, I don't really have much of a feel for under here in this matchup, even though it looks like it's 3 3/4 trending towards 4, though the juice is currently trending the other direction, I guess, to be fair. Newcastle, I'm guessing they will eventually stumble, but I'm not looking for Tottenham's weakened and banged up defense to do that. Maybe a much better lineup tomorrow morning, but I might not even get up at 6:30 for this local time start. We'll move to the big window, and it is a big window on Saturday, January 4th in the English Premier League. We'll start with Bournemouth hosting Everton. Currently, Bournemouth a 3-quarter goal favorite with almost all the juice. Total is 2.5, juice almost all the way to over. Weird to see Everton matches with a lot of juice towards over, or even a 2.5 at this point, though there's going to be a lot of tests for Everton away from home. The nice part for Bournemouth is that they, again, got a late goal to steal a draw on the road at Fulham last week. Honestly, two teams that I really like backing. It sucked that they had to face each other, especially after coming off a 10-0 Boxing Day. Not sure we'll do that again, but hoping to on this card. With that said, I think Bournemouth were very fortunate, got away with a red card challenge in the box, essentially, from Semenyo. But it was ignored. Rob Jones, the referee, not a surprise. That guy is an absolute idiot. And VAR in the English Premier League now is just not even – they're just asleep in the booth this whole time, which is kind of a problem. Stotley Park or whatever it's called, some dumb place in England. I'm not a huge England fan, as you might see, or might have noticed so far on the Betting the Pitch podcast network. But it's really troubling, especially because I thought the English Premier League were doing the best job, besides maybe the German Bundesliga. But there are a lot of problems, and Bournemouth got away with one, got a late draw. But good for them, good for Andoni Iraola. I hope that doesn't take away too much of the value that there potentially is on backing Bournemouth. But they went to Manchester United, killed them, and were a half a goal underdogs. So maybe there's not too much for Bournemouth against the bigger clubs. The problem is against these smaller ones like Everton, who I think Everton would argue have a bigger fan base and are a richer, bigger club than Bournemouth. Well, they're a 3-quarter goal underdog on the road to the Cherries, which is a big statement. I don't think Everton score enough for me to want to get involved here. Bournemouth aren't that same type of favorite, I think, as they are an underdog. They play the same style either way. But Everton, I think, is to do everything they can to force Bournemouth to create and not give them any goals, knowing that Everton are struggling so much to score goals at this point themselves. So with all that, I think lining up, I'm very interested in under 2.5, especially in a near even money. I'll certainly be waiting to see if this number climbs to 2.75. Basically, the bigger that I can get, the better. I don't know. I mean, even at +1, I don't think I want much to do with Everton because I don't think they can score, which I think really just directly correlates or corresponds to under. Manchester City then hosts West Ham United. Currently, City a 1-3/4 goal favorite with almost all the juice on West Ham away from home. Total is 3.5, juice all the way to over. Manchester City got a win finally, ended their torrid run, horrible run, whatever word I should use. And that was on the road at Leicester City. Good for a road win, but ultimately that was one of the worst teams, a newly promoted side that just came up to the Premier League. I don't think the rot has stopped. The nice part is they get another really easy matchup here in West Ham United coming in. Maybe Erling Haaland will find the goal again, which suddenly he remembered where it was after so long. But West Ham United tried a back three against Liverpool at home, of all places, to try to go really conservative. It was only the second or third time that I logged them using a back three this season. I think it was second, although I might have missed a few matches. I must say I don't think my success rate on tracking lineups is 100% so far this season, but I've been doing a pretty good job of it. And I feel like West Ham tried something different for Liverpool and were horrible. They're still a bad team. West Ham United are going to play anti-football. I don't think I want much to do with West Ham United as a side here. I think my biggest interest is to under 3.5. I think it's a good spot for West Ham, especially with a total above 3 in the Premier League. 3 is pretty much a key number that makes me look under for everyone, not involving Tottenham, probably above 3. I think West Ham United go into Manchester City. They try to make this game as ugly as possible. Jared Bowen, I think, is injured. And that's a huge, huge problem because I don't know where they're going to find goals. It's going to be Mohamed Kudus, who hasn't been as hot as he was last season, got suspended for a lot of this year as well, just killing any form. But speaking of form, Manchester City doesn't have it. One win against promoted side on the road doesn't change anything for me. So I'll look at West Ham under 3.5. Looks like it's heading towards 3.75. Might even see 4 before kickoff on Saturday morning. Southampton then hosts Brentford. Currently Southampton a quarter goal underdog at home with a little bit more juice. Total is 3, juice really heavily to under. Southampton got screwed by bad officiating. Another Premier League error, I think, on Aaron Ramsdale getting pushed into the goal on a a corner kick that went in right behind it. Southampton had a 1-0 lead. That was the equalizer for Crystal Palace away from home. And then all of a sudden it turned into another goal and a loss 2-1, killed the under, and was not deserved in my opinion. And I think that was pretty much how they've been refereeing the league for, 5 or 6 years now. But now Southampton, they're still bottom of the table, and they get to deal with Brentford coming in, who have been horrible away from home and were competitive against Arsenal, but had a really tough second half or just kind of ran out of gas. And now they're a road favorite, and they haven't done anything away from home so far this season. If you have the gall, the intestinal fortitude, the strength in yourself and one's being to back Southampton to quarter goal underdog, I think that's the side you want here. It certainly looks very cheap on the bottom side at home, but a draw gets you done, wins you half of your unit or half of your risk, half of your stake. And then Brentford, they, to me, can score goals in the first minute. They did that for a bunch of this season, but since then have really been struggling. They're really great at home, have been so far this year, but that's starting to kind of trickle out a little bit, and away from home they've been bad. So I like the idea to be against them. Southampton a quarter goal underdog, and under 3 also looks pretty good if somehow Brentford can steal a win away from home. I don't think it's a high scoring game. Moving next, Crystal Palace hosting Chelsea. Curling Palace a half a goal underdog at home with more juice. Total is 3, just pretty heavily to under right now. Chelsea climbed to second place in the table. Their manager would not admit that they were in the title run, and he was right. Pretty bad loss on the road at Ipswich Town, who couldn't beat anyone so far this season, literally, especially at home. Somehow they did beat Wolverhampton away from home, I guess. But Palace, a half a goal underdog, have been really bad at home as well, which is a huge change from when they were just dominating home matches for years and years and years, especially fighting relegation and staying in the league because of it. Now Chelsea come in as a sizable favorite, have to win the match in order to take your full bet. Or take your bet at all. Crystal Palace, a result at home is enough for a cover. And so I'm interested in that, getting that half of a goal, and also lean to under 3, as the Chelsea offense has not really been great. And Crystal Palace will certainly be intelligent. I think Oliver Glasner, their German Bundesliga former manager of Wolfsburg and of Eintracht Frankfurt, will do everything he can to keep Chelsea out of the goal. And that's going to make it really hard for a Chelsea offense that's been sputtering lately, to say the least. Moving next to the last matchup in this 10 a.m. Eastern time window on the 4th of January, of Aston Villa, a 1.5 goal favorite to Leicester City. Totals 3.25, just really heavily to under right now, and it should be. Villa are probably in great position to keep Leicester out of their net. I think Leicester's defense is what determines this matchup. I don't like Leicester to score goals. I don't like what we've seen from Jamie Vardy since he picked up his knock. He's still a fox in the box, as you'd say. Or some would say, not me, of course. But I think Villa's defense is problematic. We saw Pau Torres limp off of their last match. So there's some concerns for health. Aston Villa has been great at home. They played in front of that crowd better than anywhere else. I think this is a really tough matchup for Leicester. I lean to under 3.25 as my current interest in this matchup. Moving to the nightcap on Saturday, we have Brighton hosting Arsenal. Currently Brighton a half a goal underdog at home with all the juice on Arsenal away from home. Total is 2.75. Juice really heavily to under. And I thought Brighton, they took the lead on Aston Villa this weekend. Sunday, I think it was Monday. Guess early, whatever, last match day. And unfortunately, things kind of weren't great from there. Certainly they have problems, I think, with their goalkeeper. Aston Villa showed Arsenal the blueprint that we knew Arsenal were going to put a lot of pressure on the goalkeeper on set pieces. Brighton also, when they fall behind, they are pushing out and trying to score as much as possible and really leaving their defense in peril. So that's not a great setup. If you don't like Brighton to be competitive in this matchup, then under 2.75 is probably not that interesting. Arsenal's ability to defend is, I think, been under question lately, and they've been scoring a ton of goals despite all their injuries. So I'm not really sure what to do with this one. Probably nothing for me in the nightcap on Saturday. Moving to Sunday, we have Fulham hosting Ipswich. Currently Fulham a 1-goal favorite. More juice on the Ipswich side coming off that big victory at home. Total is 2.75. Juice slightly more to under here. I think Ipswich follow the same game plan. They went to Arsenal a couple of match days ago and were really great defensively. Did lose, but I think built a lot of confidence, and then kept a clean sheet to Chelsea at home. I think Fulham have a lot to do on their own this match day. I think they're going to leave. Ipswich will leave Liam Delap up front. and try to get him the ball on counterattacks. And I think it's going to be a hard situation to find goals in this matchup. So give me Ipswich under 2 3/4, and I'll certainly be looking for 3, a move to 3 on Sunday morning. Last on Sunday is Liverpool hosting Manchester United. Currently Liverpool, a 1 3/4 goal favorite with more juice on almost all the juice on the Manchester United side. Total is 3 1/4, almost all the way juiced to over here. I don't really see the goals being scored. Manchester United have been a dead under team this season. Ruben Amorim hasn't really changed that. Doesn't really look like he knows what he's doing. Tough to go to Anfield as well. And there's been some lopsided matches, touchdown discrepancies in some of these going back not too far in the past. But I think we see a competitive match here. So I'm interested in an under 3 1/4, much more than Manchester United, because I think they could lose this match by a lot lopsided lopsided margin. Easy for me to say. And I think we see Liverpool potentially struggle, because I just don't think they're this much better than the rest of the chasing pack. Moving to Monday, last match of the match day, and then we'll get a best bet for the ultimate best bet portion of the show. Wolves, a 1/4 goal underdog at home, Nottingham Forest. More juice on the Wolves side, totals 2 1/4. Juice pretty heavily to over right now, potentially moving to 2.5 soon. Wolves have improved on their new manager, are undefeated with, I think, 2 victories, or at least I know they're undefeated, but unbeaten. Nottingham Forest stealing wins everywhere they go, but playing well, and their defense has been great. I think my biggest interest in this matchup is Nottingham Forest under 2 1/4 goals. Lean to Wolves a little bit, but I think we have to find some way to trust Wolves to win this match. And Nottingham Forest look like they're just playing so well right now. Nuno Espirito Santo, who had been sacked from Wolves manager position years ago, not a great setup. I think Nottingham Forest play this well and try to keep climbing and keep hanging on to a position in a possible Champions League berth next year. For my best bet on this episode in the English Premier League, I think there's a lot of choices. I mean, that Monday match is really tempting. The Wolverhampton under 2 1/4, even with the state of the Wolves defense. I think there's a little bit more to go with, though, and it's probably not the most attractive, but Southampton under 3 goals. And honestly, the Southampton side too is very attractive too. I'm trying to think of what the best and the easiest time for everyone to get, because this is going to be out pretty soon if you're looking for it, because we're only, let's see, 8 hours and 52 minutes from kickoff in England, but of this big window on Saturday, but not really much interest in the late one on Saturday. So I think I'll pick one of these others. And I think the biggest interest for me is gotta be, it's gotta be that push on 3. So I'll go Southampton, Brentford under 3 goals in the English Premier League is my best bet on Saturday, the 4th of January. We got 2 leagues left to go through, and we'll smash them all together for the ultimate best bet coming out on @thereal_G Warner on Instagram and on YouTube in the 1-minute form of shorts or reels, depending what site you're on. Please hit subscribe on those areas. And I do have Paul Padia to shout out, or Padia, correct me in the comments if I didn't say that right, my bad. But thank you for a new YouTube subscriber, and I'll try to shout you all out whenever I see it, especially if I see it right before I come onto a podcast. But we'll move next to Serie A in Italy. Unfortunately, I don't have any lines for the Supercoppa up right now, so I don't see anything. So we'll just go Serie A for this episode. First matchup on Saturday, Venezia hosting Empoli. Currently Venezia, a 1/4 goal favorite at home with more juice on the road team. Totals 2 1/4. She's pretty heavily to under right now. Venezia, I thought, played their hearts out on the road at Napoli last weekend, but were only able to I guess they weren't able to take anything with them, though they did concede only 1 goal late in the match to Raspadori of all players. Now they're at home in a match that they need to win. They've already sacked their manager, and in come a really strong defense. I think we see a low-scoring match here. That's my biggest interest in this one by far. Lean to Empoli getting a 1/4 goal, but I think I like under 2 1/4 even more. Next on the list, we'll go Fiorentina hosting Napoli. Currently, Fiorentina a pick'em at home with all the juice on Napoli. Totals 2 1/4, and it is pretty split juice, exactly split right now at BetOnline and Sportsbetting.ag. If you're not a member at either of those sites, go make a first-time deposit. There are links in the podcast descriptions on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and they'll give you 50% of your deposit free. Go take advantage of it. Free money is the best way to level the playing field with the casinos. I think Fiorentina's the side I want here, coming off Juventus last weekend, tough, and now Napoli come in, but Fiorentina get to be at home for this one. I think that pushes them in the right direction. We've seen this number climbing from a pick'em to a quarter. We'll see where it ends up closing, but I'm interested more in home teams at pick'ems than I am road teams. So with that said, I think Fiorentina are strong. I think Napoli are a big name managed by Antonio Conte, but I'm not really sure I believe that they are producing the way their points tally suggests. With that said, I lean to under 2.25, which certainly would, I think, follow the Napoli style, which is a low scoring game that they always tend to play, even if it is against a newly promoted bottom of the league side that sacked their manager, like against Venezia, as I just mentioned. So lean to Fiorentina at a pick'em right now, also under 2.25 in that matchup. For the nightcap on Saturday, Verona hosting Udinese. Verona, a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Total is 2.25, juice all the way to over. So some pretty expensive numbers on this one. Udinese collapsing from a 2-0 lead to Torino last weekend. Not great. Now they go to one of the worst clubs in Italy, and they are certainly not as confident as they would have been if they had held on to a lead, whether 2-0 or 2-1. Verona's defense has been awful. Verona are usually in financial peril and sell a bunch of players at this time. We'll see what that lineup looks like on Saturday, January 4th afternoon here in the United States. But at this point, Verona are really tough to back, especially with this price tag. So I'll wait to see if some Udinese money comes in. I think under 2.25 is my biggest interest, but I haven't really liked the Verona defense as much this season. We'll move to Sunday of Monza hosting Cagliari. Currently, Monza, a quarter goal favorite at home. All the juice on Cagliari away. Total is 2.5. Juice really heavily to under. Monza have not been scoring. They've sacked their manager. They are really, really struggling. Cagliari on the other side have a relegation fighter who's been in place from the start, which I think is going to keep them in the league. They're a lot more conservative away from home. So I think we see a very low scoring match. This probably hits 2.25, but I'm not scared of that. Lean to Cagliari getting a quarter of a goal as well, because I like their setup a lot better. And they're certainly more confident than Monza at this point. Moving to the next match, we'll go to Lecce hosting Genoa. Currently, Lecce a pick'em right now with all the juice. Totals 2.25, juice all the way to under. Probably see this one fall to two teams that don't have much offense to speak of, which makes any favorite certainly look worth looking at an underdog. I think at this point, nothing as we've got a juiced home favorite at pick'em right now. I don't really trust Lecce to score much, but I'll lean to under 2.25 on that matchup. Moving next to Torino hosting Parma. Currently, Torino a half a goal favorite at home with more juice. Totals 2.5, juice more to the under. Torino, they haven't been able to score goals this season, so half a goal favorite, even against a Parma side that have been up and down, does feel a little bit expensive. I'll certainly be waiting to see if Torino climb. Parma aren't really an under team for me. They play too aggressively, and that does certainly worry me a little bit away from home, but I still like that half of a goal. A road draw or maybe even a road win, wouldn't be surprised by that whatsoever, especially considering Torino's struggles. No matter if they pulled back 2 goals against Udinese in their last matchup, give me Parma half of a goal underdog on the road in that matchup. Last but not least, big Rome derby, derby de Capitale. De Capitale? I don't know. I don't speak Italian, but Roma a pick right now with all the juice as the quote unquote home team in the shared Stadio Olimpico. Totals 2.5, and it is juiced all the way to under. So just the setup on this matchup, yes, both teams share the stadium, but they do not split seats. At least they hadn't in previous years. So Roma should have their fans in place, and I think that's why they're currently really juiced right now. I'll be waiting to see Lazio get a quarter of a goal. I think they are the better side. They've been playing better, and they have a lot more stability, even though they hired a manager that didn't have a lot of respect. Well, Roma has hired 3 or 4 of them this year. Lean to under 2.5 as well. I think we see a low-scoring derby matchup. I think that's perfect for under and underdog. I probably lean Lazio as a quarter goal underdog if it gets there, but we don't have that yet, so I'll put under 2.5 on my list in that matchup. For my best bet in the Italian Serie A, especially as we have some of the big dogs out in the Supercoppa Italia playing in Dubai or Qatar, wherever the blood money will pay the most. I'll go with that Fiorentina Napoli under 2.25 goals. Probably would pick Fiorentina a quarter of a goal underdog if we had it, but it's not available as we speak. So I'll go under 2.25 in that matchup. Last but not least on this episode, we have the Bundesliga still off till next week, and La Liga, I think they are off as well. Did have Real Madrid play today, but I think they're playing Copa del Rey this weekend, and there's a lot of no-name teams that I could not even tell you a player on, and I'm trying not to bet those, I must admit. But we'll go to Ligue 1 in France. We'll start with, especially if I'm wearing a Ligue 1, I guess, polo, coach's gear, who knows? Anyway, we'll go to Saint-Etienne hosting Reims on the early matchup on the 4th of January. Currently, Saint-Etienne, a quarter goal underdog at home, while the juice on Reims away. Total is 2.5, juiced all the way to under. Saint-Etienne have been only really backable at home, which they are here in this matchup. So that certainly puts them on the list as a possibility. Reims have been scoring a lot of goals, and that certainly scares me against a really porous Saint-Etienne defense, or just you could call it poor. Don't really have much feel for an under 2.5 here, so I think I'm leaning more to the home underdog, but it's going to be hard to make the list, and I don't think it will. Lille then hosts Nantes. Currently, Lille a goal favorite with almost all the juice. Total is 2.5, juice all the way to under. Nantes have been good, I think, under Antoine Comboiré. Their defensive manager. Lille have been awesome, one of the best teams in Champions League, and I don't really like the setup of going to Lille and trying to avoid that little firework thing that goes off every time they score a goal. I think Nantes will go and try to defend, so under 2.5 is probably the biggest interest. And Lille's defense has been good this year, so that's probably my biggest lean. But it is a soft one at best. Moving next to Lyon hosting Montpellier. Currently, Lyon a 1.5 favorite at home in the nightcap with all the juice. Totals 3.75, just all the way to under. So this is a big total, especially for Ligue in France. Montpellier's defense is bad, but their offense is not really going to threaten Lyon much. Certainly, this one is looking like the Ligue 1 betting market is seeing a ton of goals, and they're not coming from Montpellier. Lyon are the biggest favorite I think I've seen them this season, besides Saint-Etienne, their big rival, but that was a 1-0 match. So I think under 3.75 is my biggest interest in this one. It just feels too big as I currently look at it. Moving to Sunday, we have Strasbourg hosting Angers, calling the Strasbourg a half a goal favorite with more juice. Totals 2.75, juice more to the over. Angers are a goal-scoring team. They're going to try to outscore you. They're newly promoted, won Ligue 2 last season, and have been playing pretty well, but we'll see how they do coming back from the break. Strasbourg on the other side are really talented, but very young and make a lot of dumb mistakes. I lean to Angers, and I think I lean to over 2.75. There you are, Joe Dollar at the over of the show. I'm not sure we're going to see that many because we're only going 3 leagues today. Lens then hosts Toulouse. Currently, Lens a half a goal favorite with all the juice on Toulouse away from home. Totals 2.5, juiced all the way to under. Lens are a really great home team, great defense, especially at home. Toulouse are a goal scoring team, though, so those teams are kind of butting heads. We'll see who takes control of this matchup. Looks like this line's going to head towards a quarter of a goal, which I think is pretty respectful of Toulouse. But at this point, I think I trust the Lens defense more, so I lean to under 2.5 in that matchup. We'll move next to Angers hosting Stade Brestois, staying third matchup of this same 9 a.m. Eastern time window on Sunday, January 5th here in the United States. Angers, a quarter goal underdog with more juice, totals 2.25, juice to split. Stade Brestois, they've been great in Champions League, a lot from an easy schedule. Fortunate for them. They are going to go against a newly promoted side that are trying like heck to stay in the league. Stade Brestois have been great in Champions League, not great in the league, in Ligue 1. So that's a problem for them. I think we see a very aggressive and determined effort here, especially coming off a long break. I think Angers do their best to keep this low scoring. I lean to under 2.25 in this matchup. Last but not least, the nightcap, Le Marseille hosting Le Havre. Currently, Marseille, a 1.5 favorite at home with more juice. Total is 3, just pretty heavily to under / all the way, looking like it's trending towards 2.75. Feels like a pretty low total for Marseille at home potentially, but also a very high total for Le Havre. They're a very defensive-minded, defensive-branded, are trying to stay in the league by, I guess, winning matches 1-0 is probably the best result for them. Marseille, I don't really trust, especially at home. They don't play great there. They're really great away from home. I lean to Le Havre as a big underdog, but I think I lean under 3 more than anything. Pretty much gives you, if Le Havre don't score, it gives you 3 Marseille goals to play with. And if Le Havre do score, then you still got 2. So lean to Le Havre and Marseille under 3 in that matchup. So now before we get to the ultimate best of portion of the show, I got to give you a French pick, and then we will move forward and give you one from each of the leagues once we get there. And I think I'll go with another under. It doesn't sound very sexy. My bad for that. But, at this point, I feel like the 3.75 is just too big on Lyon and Montpellier. So I'll go under 3.75 on that matchup. And that brings us to the last part of the show. I want to make sure If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out. Patreon.com/real_G Warner. Best spot for all my plays, leans, write-ups across all sports, including a big college basketball day tomorrow. Those of you that are live with me right now, please feel free to have the comments on. If you want to send something in here, I'll make sure to check it before we sign off. Other things. So we do have an NFL podcast out with A_Schnicker that we recorded last night. Gives you an idea of kind of where we're thinking about going with the NFL this weekend. College basketball, we did a pregame.com podcast, The Need for Seeds at Big East Ben. That should be out on the interwebs, wherever you get your podcast now. Go search pregame.com or go to pregame now on Twitter and you will find, I'll try to retweet that before the games get started tomorrow as well. Other than that, thank you for the support everywhere you've been at the real_G Warner on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube, and Betting the Pitch on Apple Podcast and on Spotify. As I lose my background light, that's back. We're good. I think it's time to record the ultimate best bet. And then, I don't know, try to find some sleep and try to feel like I'm not dying, as my trip to Vegas was the most successful, most profitable of my life. But I am certainly paying for it, even still right now. Hey, this is the real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet. We're 22-6 so far this season, 79%, probably a little bit better than that, but yet to grade the Newcastle Manchester United under. For this episode in the English Premier League, I like under 3 in Southampton's match. In the Serie A in Italy, I like Fiorentina under 2.25. And it's surprise, another under in Ligue 1, I like Montpellier under 3 3/4. But for the ultimate best bet in this episode, 22-6 year to date, 79%. I will go with that Southampton under 3 goals. It's a tough matchup, certainly at home in the Premier League. You never really want that from the bottom side. But in comes Brentford, one of the worst road teams in the league. Really short underdog at home. There's a lot of love and a lot of respect for Southampton. So I'll play that under 3 goals, and I lean under 1/4 goal underdog at home as well. We'll see you next time on the Betting the Pitch podcast. Make sure you hit the follow button. And go follow at the real_G Warner wherever you get your social medias. And that'll do it for this episode. I am going to go to sleep at some point tonight, maybe never. But thank you so much for your support. I don't see any comments in here, so I will sign off right
Recording stopped.
now.